Welcome back, everybody. It's been a long summer. Midwest Hotspur is back. I know the last video I did, which has now been quite a bit of time since that's taken place. That last video we did, I said I was going to get on a better schedule, I was going to put out more stuff, and then my entire work schedule went through the roof. And I lost track of a lot of time. But I'm excited to get some time to be able to put another one out. Obviously, between my last video and now, there's been a hell of a lot that's gone on. So this episode, I'll try to unwrap a lot of it. I'm not going to dig too deep into any one topic, but this is going to be more of a summer recap / season preview of what I kind of think of how the summer's gone, as well as, the first 5 matches, how I think the season's going to go. So, let's get right back into it. I know it's been a long time coming since this last video, and I just want to jump right in and get to where we're hitting the ground running. So, summer. I think the story of the summer has been Ange Postecoglou. I think when I did my last video, obviously I was pretty big on the Julian Nagelsmann side of things. Really was on the Pochettino bandwagon as well, and everything on those sides seemed to fall apart. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I even said that Ainge is an option, but it felt like a underwhelming one. That's in my brain. I'm fairly certain I said that. If I didn't, that's what was going through my mind, is that he's not. I don't think he's a bad option, but I thought it was a little underwhelming. Like, you can't go from Jose and Conte. It felt like another, without the downfall of Nuno, it felt like that kind of signing, like we're just going after somebody because that's who's left. I will say, from that mindset to now, Ainge has been incredible. I think he's handled what has been a very difficult summer. I think he's handled it pretty brilliantly. Obviously, having the tour in Australia, or start off in Australia, was probably big for him. I think that was a very calculated decision for him, but I have been so incredibly impressed with him as a person and as a manager, his tactics. I think what we're witnessing is a return of the Tottenham football that we all know and love. It's been exciting to see the amount of possession, the amount of shots, the ball movement, the 1-touch, 2-touch passing. It's been wonderful to see. Early stages, defense is still absolutely abysmal. Like, it's genuinely concerning. I think there's a good chance we have quite a few matches where, we're giving up 3-4 goals. I think that's entirely in the cards. But overall, I think for a step in what is a rebuild, whether we want to believe it or not, this is a pretty massive rebuild. I think he's turned out to be as good of a, if you want to call him a consolation prize, as possible. I've been so happy with that signing, and I know a lot of people would have liked Nagelsmann. I know a lot of people would have been huge fans of Pochettino, who has now gone to Chelsea since then. But Ainge feels like a breath of fresh air, and I think that's about all you can ask for in a new manager who is taking over for a club that's been toxic for a long time now. It's been pretty difficult to open Twitter, or, well, now X, whatever they call it now. All those kind of things, is do any, watching any videos of it, watching any news coverage of it, pulling up all the fans' perspective, and it's been so toxic for such a long time because of how negative the football had gotten. And it's one of those things where I think, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think for as off the radar as he was probably 4 months back, 5 months back, I think he's been a knockout of the park, 10 out of 10 to this point. We also had some permanent signings. Obviously we closed up the deals on Pedro Porro and Kulusevski. Those are factoring in to be big pieces of what has been the summer window, which is a little concerning to this point, but I think Kulusevski, it's a no-brainer to bring him back. I mean, he had just been too good at the beginning of his loan. last year, obviously, he had some issues. I think there were a lot of players that kind of played down at the end of the Conte era. I think he's a guy that's going to be so good in this system, so creative, can just does so much so well with the ball. He was a no-brainer. Pedro Porro, on the other hand, I don't know that I'm as ecstatic about that signing. I think when Conte was here, he was the kind of signing that everybody kind of pointed to and said, "This is who we need. This will fix the system. Having this person on the right side to do these things." And now that we're moving to this back four, more of an inverted fullback position, I do wonder if he's going to work out. I think everything I've heard from Postecoglou regarding him is confidence. I think he's going to do fine. I think he's going to handle that side fine. I do think this obviously ups what Emerson Royal's value is, but I hope that it works out better than what I think it is going to. But he was one of the permanent signings. We also had some new signings. Those are always fun whenever we get those. We got a new goalkeeper, Vicario, coming over. He's one I'm intrigued by. I don't know that I'm 100% sold on him as the long-term replacement for Lloris. Obviously, he's being handed the keys. He's going to be the starter. But I'll be honest. I didn't see a lot of matches with him. To be honest, if I'm really getting honest with you guys, I had never even heard of him before the rumors started going that he was coming. So I just don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to him. I've heard a lot of quotes and a lot of reports that there was a lot of love for him in the Italy market, and they definitely think he's going to be a star. That he's got that kind of talent, but it remains to be seen. We've seen guys that are really well thought of come over and just not really hit the ground running with us. So that'll be an interesting one to see play out. Obviously, James Maddison, just monumental signing. I mean, he's the first player of that type, that style, in quite a while to step in and 17 for us. It's I think it might be a little too late when it comes to the Kane stuff. We'll see. We'll get on that a little bit later, but I think he's the kind of signing that if they would have done 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that might have reshaped how everything is done here. I think he was the kind of signing that we've missed for a long time. So I'm absolutely ecstatic for him coming in. I think he's going to be tremendous. I'm really intrigued to see what this offense is going to look like with him kind of darting around on the left-hand side. Obviously, expect him to play in the midfield. I do think he can play up top a little bit as well. But excited for him. And then the last permanent signing that we have as of now is Solomon, who, I'll be honest, there was a whole lot of people that looked at that signing as like a cheap option. And obviously, he came on a free. Whether that remains a free or not, I guess depends on how it goes with Shakhtar. But I tell you what I've seen from Solomon so far in these few preseason games, he's electric, absolutely electric. He looks, and maybe this is an off-putting like reminder of somebody, but he looks like Lucas when he first came to the team. I mean, he is a wizard with the ball at his feet. I'm hoping that he has a better end product than what Lucas ended up having, but he's the kind of guy that you can put on at the end of a match, and he's going to create. He's going to be able to take guys one-on-one, break down the defense, and hopefully have that final ball into the box that Kane, Richarlison, whoever's up top, Son, whoever is there, can finish. So, I mean, for three signings, genuinely, I think they're pretty good. I know a lot of people that are going to look at the Vicario signing and say David Raya was the signing they should have done, and it'll be really interesting. They have obviously a lot of rumors right now that he's going to Arsenal to kind of compete with Ramsdale, and that'll be interesting to see if that does take place, because it's not going to be on cheap. I mean, I think if there was a deal for less than 40 million, Tottenham would have swooped him up. Brentford is going to hold out for that price, and if Arsenal make that move, for a goalkeeper when they allegedly have a guy of the level of Ramsdale. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. But I can see how people would be a little off put on the fact that Arsenal would be bringing in a quote unquote backup goalkeeper that we couldn't reach the price on. Obviously, those are all the signings that we have right now. The big glaring item is no center back. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but obviously we hope there's movement there. So I want to jump into the departures. There's only been a few so far. Obviously, this is a very bloated squad. We have a lot of guys that are not going to play or haven't been able to break into the team in a long time, and I'm going to kind of run down the list of who we have and who I think should leave. Obviously, there's not a lot of time left in the summer window. I mean, we're approaching about a month left. But we have had Harry Winks leave. He did go to Leicester. Kind of a I think a good fit for him going there in the Championship to a club that likely is going to come back up. But man, what a fall he's had. I mean, kind of a la Dele in how he kind of went from so much expected to really kind of just dropping down the rungs of success. And Winks, I think that's going to be good for his career. I think he's going to go there, and I think he's going to do really well with them. But him leaving is kind of bittersweet. He's a guy that I think everybody kind of hoped and wanted to be good here, and just seemed to stall out to a certain extent, and just really couldn't take those next couple steps forward. So Winks is out. He's moved on. Lucas Moura, his contract ended. He is now out of the club. Another one of these guys that was, I mean, a lot of promise, but just sizzled out. Just didn't get that thing. And I think the problem with him was just, kind of the issue you hear with some other players. It's just the end product wasn't there. He wasn't capable of being a frontline first choice winger. And I think the change in formation probably hurt as well. It put a lot more pressure on those front three when we go to that more back three option. It puts a lot more pressure on them to score. You don't have that scoring help from the midfield typically at that point. So I think it was a system that was bad for him, and I think genuinely just kind of he kind of reached his peak. We'll always have Ajax. That second leg was brilliant, but that was really it. I mean, when you go back through it, there really wasn't anything else with Lucas. So him leaving, to me, bittersweet. He was one of the first players I learned of when I came and started becoming a fan of Tottenham, and I always expected and wanted more from him, and it just never got to that point. But yeah, so he is gone, and then obviously the captain is expected to leave. Lloris is the guy that I think everybody at this point is looking at as he is done with Tottenham. He has not moved on yet, but the expectation is for it to be soon. I don't think even if he doesn't go, let's say, the start of the season as we get to Brentford, if he's still on the roster, I don't expect him to suit up for that. I think we've reached the end of the road with him, and he'll move on to his next chapter in whatever form or fashion that is, but he'll be on the way out. So if Lloris goes, that will only be 3 outgoing. I don't know how many of you have looked at the first team squad, but it's a lot bigger than that. So over the next month, there's a lot of quote unquote dead wood in the team, and I'm just going to kind of run down some of this list of guys that whether they could or could stay or go. It's kind of up in the air right now. The first man on the list I think was, by all accounts, expected to go 100%, and that's Gio Lo Celso. I think he was the one with his time at Villarreal. He was expected to go, and I would have bet a lot of money on it. But after the last couple preseason matches with him out there, I really have kind of flip-flopped that now, and I think Ainge is going to keep him around. I think he's probably going to play a lot until Bentancur is fully back. I think we could see a lot of Madison, Lo Celso, Højbjerg midfield. I think that could be something that they do quite a bit of. Basuma did pick up a knock in the last match, so I could like to see him there too. But I think we're going to see a lot of Lo Celso. He's a guy that I was so certain was going to go, but I think he's going to stay. And another name that is kind of in that Lo Celso territory is Tanguy Ndombele. I I think he's going to be. I think he's staying too. I think he's going to end up being a depth option. I just don't think Tottenham's going to get an offer for him. I think if they got even a modest offer for Tanguy, I think they accept it and let him go. But I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I know he won a trophy there in Napoli, and he wasn't really a starter for them. I think that was the thing, is like he's gone on these loans. I think the year before that he was at Lyon. He really hasn't shown the work rate and the effort and the talent level that he showed his first time around at Lyon when we made him a club signing. Like it just hasn't materialized in that fashion, and I just don't see another club really kind of going to that well confidently and saying we need to add this guy to our roster. So I think a lot of people would like him to go, but I think right now Tanguy, he's going to stay. He's going to be a part of this roster. I think he'll play a role very similar to what he played for Napoli, where he's going to be a guy on the bench. He might make a spot start here or there, but for the most part, he's not going anywhere, and he's not going to be a main focal point of the team. Davinson Sanchez is the next one on my list. I think at this point, Davinson's gone. I think he's for sure going to go. I know he had a rough end of the season. And honestly, I know he had the one match where he was really brutal. Like, I mean, he had some major issues and did not get a lot of help in that match either. But genuinely, when he started coming in for the, when we had those injuries at the back end, he genuinely played pretty well. He's always got a mistake in him, and that's always going to be the thing that everybody remembers about him when he does eventually go, is that he was just a guy that could not clean up the mistakes. But, physically, he's everything you want in a center back. So I think he for sure is going to go. It's a matter of where. I know there was a couple Turkish sides that were interested in him. I think that's likely the route he's going to go, but I imagine he's probably going to hold out and see what other offers he gets. I'd be interested to see if another Premier League team decided to give him a go on a cut rate deal. He's still not very old. I think he's 26, maybe, somewhere in there. So he's not crazy old. He's uber athletic. He's got the size. He's got just about everything you want. So I'll be intrigued to see as we go over the next couple of weeks if a Premier League team does decide to give him a go. But if not, he's going to go somewhere else. I think that's pretty well set. Eric Dyer, I know a lot of people want him out. I don't think that's happening. He's going to be here. I do think if we sign another center back, he will not be a starter. Obviously, Romero is option one at the right back. We want to sign a left center back. So they say. We haven't seen it done yet, but the expectation is that Eric Dyer is going to be here. But will be here more in that capacity of being a guy off the bench or able to fill in for injuries or something like that. And honestly, I think in that role he makes sense. I don't think he's going to generate too much interest across the board. And I think he's one of those guys that I think the club like him too much to let him go unless it was some offer that knocked them off their feet. And they're just not going to get that offer with him. So Eric Dyer, I think, in his case, he's likely going to stay. Sergio Reguilon, I think he's going to go. I just think there's too much competition now at fullback. I like how we went from a year ago to where we didn't have fullbacks to now it's like we have this immense surplus of it. And I think, the sad thing for him is I think this system fits him perfectly. I think he'd be tremendous in it. But listen, there's just too many players ahead of him, and I know there's a likelihood that Cess could leave too. But if Cess doesn't go, especially with his injury now, I don't think there's any chance he goes. With Cess likely coming back at some time this year, you've got Udogie, you got Davis. I don't see him having enough playing time in this team for him to stay. And I think in the long run, somebody is going to call up for him. I think it's likely going to be one of the Spanish clubs. But, he went to Atletico and didn't do particularly well. I don't think he did that great there. But I think somebody will call for him because he's had some glimpses there in La Liga, and I think somebody will reach back in and see what they can get out of him. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He's not deadwood. But I do think as the weeks have gone on, I think it is very likely he's going to go. I personally want him to stay. I think he's done enough in the past to show he's a talented player that he can really be an important part of this midfield. But I'm going to be honest, he's one of the few players we have that has genuine interest out there that can bring in significant funds. And I think he's a guy, the big rumor now has been Atletico Madrid. I think he's going to end up going. There's a lot of smoke right now around Atletico. So I don't know if it'll happen before the start of the season, but I do think there's a very good likelihood that he goes. I do think it depends on what's up with Bissouma's injury. That knock that he just picked up. If that's something serious, I think they would hold on to Pierre. But he's one that I think of the list that we're going through, he's the one that makes the most sense to go because he's the one that could likely brings in the most money. And he doesn't perfectly fit the system anymore. He was a really good fit for the last couple managers, but this one I do wonder if he's the fit that he wants. I think Bissouma fits it better. But yeah, so Pierre will be an interesting one to watch. I think there's a really good chance he goes. If he stays, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But yeah, there's Pierre. Brian Hill. I think he's likely to go. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a loan. I think an offer would have to be a pretty substantial offer to get him off the books for Tottenham, especially with how the transfer to get him has gone, with Lamela seemingly doing really well at Sevilla and Hill going back to Sevilla a couple times and stuff. But I think his time will likely be determined by whether the next player we're going to touch on stays or goes. If the next player we're going to talk about stays, I think Hill, very good chance he goes at minimum out on loan. If the next player goes, I think there's a brilliant spot for him to stay and be a part of this team. And that next player is Ivan Perisic. Again, not deadwood. He's a very good player, playing as a winger now under Ainge, and I think that's, at this point in his career, I think that's the best position you can put him in. He's been really good in this preseason, and he's looked like a guy that, we know he's a straight professional. He's going to put in all the effort he's got while he's playing, but he's looked genuinely dangerous out there, playing in a more forward role. I personally would like him to stay. I think if we can keep him and he doesn't want to go somewhere else, I think as a guy off the bench, as a depth option, because he's not going to start over Kulo, he's not going to start over Son. I think he's a great option, and that would mean that if we keep Perisic and he doesn't go anywhere, that means there's likely you need to move on Gil, and I think that's fine. But he would be really interesting to see if he does indeed stay, because he was one of those players, kind of similar to Gio, that I thought was for certain leaving, and now I'm not so certain. I think there's a good chance he could stay. The last couple players I'm kind of up in the air on. Joe Rodon, I expect him to go. I think we've seen the last of Joe. I don't think he's good enough in this system. I think we haven't seen a sniff of him from Ainge, and I think that's a signal enough that he's probably not a guy that is, big on the thoughts of that coach. And so I expect him to go. Jed Spence, again, I expect him to go. I just think there's too many players ahead of him. I don't think he's going to jump over Royal or Porro. So Jed Spence, as much as I like him, a guy that was a perfect fit for the last system, maybe not so much now. I think he'll go, but I do think he will more than likely be alone. I think Rodon would be a straight sell, but Jed I think would be a loan. I don't think they're quite ready to let that go, but that'll be interesting to see. Jaffet is the last one I got on my list. I think he's a guy that if the right offer came in, they would let him go. I think he would be more so tied to what do we do at center back? Do we sign anybody else at center back? But he's a guy that I think if the club got a good option, he's probably going as well. So that kind of rounds out most of the deadwood that I have on the team. To kind of finish up this summer recap now, who else could possibly come in? You know, who else could we turn to and say this is a guy that's going to come in and be a great option for Ainge? And the one glaring spot now is center back. It's completely center back. There's been two names that have been floated out for a long time now, and it's Tapsoba and it's Mickey Van de Ven. It seems like the last I saw I saw something from Fabrizio come out that Van de Ven seems likely now. Still haven't gotten the here we go, so no for sure yet. But I think there's a good chance that he's the one we go. I think Tapsoba is probably just too expensive. It just doesn't seem like that's a transfer that's going to happen. I think everybody would prefer Tapsoba, but I will say Van de Ven. I've watched some of his highlights. I haven't watched a lot of Wolfsburg's matches, so I don't know like live action watching him too much. But some of the highlights, he looks like an electric center back. He looks like a guy that would be perfect next to Romero, and I think that's what everybody's holding out for. Center back is the most important thing we needed to do all summer outside of goalkeeper, and we haven't done it yet. It's very important we do so. And the fact that we haven't done it yet and we're this close to the start of the season, it's very concerning. But that's the last position to worry about right now. I mean, I look at it, the midfield's set, man. Like we don't need midfielders, we don't need wingers, we don't need fullbacks. We signed a goalkeeper. We need center backs. That's the area. If we have any funds left, and we certainly should have funds left, it's center back is what we need to do. But if there was another position that we might need to sign somebody at, could be striker. Because you know what? This saga with Harry Kane and Bayern has been going on, and we still don't have a resolution to it. I don't even have a choice right now for striker because I think the natural progression would be put Richarlison up top, and maybe you're not going to keep Scarlett up. I mean, he's probably going out on a loan again. You need to bring in somebody to support Richarlison and be a backup option and stuff, but it would just be a complete diversion from our current setup with Harry at the top. I guess the question everybody's talking is he going to stay or is he going to go? I personally don't understand why Harry would want to go right now. I think, watching this Bayern saga go out, it doesn't make sense to me. One, I don't understand why Bayern would spend as much money as being required to get him. We're talking approaching £100 million, is what they're saying. For a guy that is going to be out of contract and or able to sign with a foreign club in 6 months, I don't understand why they would spend that much. I'll be honest, it just doesn't make sense for Tottenham to spend or to sell him. It just doesn't. Whether he resigns or not, I don't care how much money they get. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it just your best player your club's ever had, who is at the top of his game, selling him does what? It doesn't do anything. Like, the thing has never made sense to me. If I had to guess, I think he's going to stay, and I don't think he's going to sign a contract extension. I think he'll run out the contract, and then I think it's going to be a bidding war over who can pay him the most money. And I hope at that point Tottenham opens up the checkbook and says, we'll give you what you need. But I don't think it's necessarily likely. But from a Kane perspective, why would you not wait a year? Don't get me wrong, Bayern's a huge club. Talk about one of the world's biggest clubs. There's a lot of reasons to go to Bayern. But when you're this close to being a free agent, and then you can get the likes of everybody involved. because there is no transfer fee. I think that's the biggest part of this whole thing, is that there are only a handful of clubs, maybe not even a full handful of clubs, that could buy Harry Kane right now. And most of those clubs are English that would not be able to do a deal with Levy. It just wouldn't happen. Levy's not going to sign him to another English club. So that narrows it even more to where there's just not a lot of options. There's basically PSG, Bayern, Real, Barca maybe if they fix their financials. And then after that, there's really no one else. I don't think any of the Italian clubs have the money to do it. I don't think any other German club does. I don't think any other Spanish club does. It's not capable of being done. So why would you not wait until you can get all these clubs involved? That no longer is this massive fee on top of the players' wages needed. To me, it just doesn't make sense. So that's my thought, is that I think Harry's going to stay. I think it makes most sense for him to stay. But if he goes, it'd just be so weird. It'd be one of the weirdest things I've seen since I started following the sport. And we've seen Messi come to America, and we've seen Ronaldo go to Saudi Arabia. So, there's been weirder things that have happened, but it's just one of those things that just doesn't make sense to me. I think all the cards are lining up for everything to be in Harry's court if he just is patient and he just waits. And that's where I think we're going to end up. I think we're going to start the season. Supposedly he has said if he doesn't get sold before the start of the season, he's not going anywhere. He won't agree to anything. And I think that's best case scenario. Like, if you're Tottenham, you just hired this very progressive manager in age, right? You just hired him. The football he's playing is brilliant offensively. Give this man 6 months to convince Kane to stay. Just open it up. Give him that time. And if Harry likes what he sees, maybe he decides to renew. Even if it's on a 1-year deal. Maybe he decides to do it. But it doesn't make sense otherwise. It just doesn't. So that's the summer recap, guys. We're approaching really quickly here the start of the season. Brentford away, first match of the season. I went ahead and did my prediction for the first 5 matches, what I think they'll get points-wise. Right now, with Harry Kane on the roster, I am expecting 9 points from 15 in the first 5 matches. That's my expert opinion on this. In that 9 points, I have no losses. I think it's going to be a undefeated start, but a lot of draws in there. So we'll kind of run through them really quick before we wrap this up. I know this has been a little longer than I expected it to be. But my prediction as of right now, with Harry on the roster, if he's gone, it's a completely different thing. Throw these out the window. But my expectation is away at Brentford, that's a draw. I think that's a flip of the coin, to be honest. I could see a win, loss, or draw in any form or fashion. But I think Brentford at home, that's a very tough match. It's early in the Ainge era. I think it's going to be sloppy defensively. I think a draw makes a lot of sense. Personally, 2-2 sounds perfect for it. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And a start to the season where you don't lose, you start to see a little sprinkle of what Ainge ball can be, but a start nonetheless. Match week 2, we got home versus Man United. I have that as a draw. I think that one is not so much a coin flip. I think Man United is better than us, with or without Kane. I'll be honest. I think they're a better team than us. And I think if it wasn't a draw, it's more likely to be a loss than a win. But I do think we will avoid a loss there and end up with 2 points out of a possible 6 at that point. The next week, match week 3, is Bournemouth away. I think it's a win. Bournemouth's a bad team. I'm not at all concerned with them. I know that they played us tough last year, but I think we're going to see the best of Ainge ball in that one. I think it's going to be an explosive match. I think if Harry's there, he's probably going to put 2 in. That's 3 points easy. Away at Burnley is match week 4. I put a draw for that one too. I just like Burnley Turf Moor. It's not a game I want. It's one of those, you come off the Bournemouth match, and I think that one, I think Vincent Kompany and Burnley is going to be a tough out this year. Away, I'll take a draw any day of the week there, but I think that's what it's likely going to be. That one I would be, if I had to choose, if there was no draw option and it was just win or loss, I would expect a win more than a loss. And then week 5, the last of the 5, is home at Sheffield United. Sheffield United, I think, is the worst team in the Premier League right now, and that's with Luton Town up there. I think they're going to blow the doors off of Sheffield United. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it be a little bit of a struggle, but Sheffield's bad, man. I'm not concerned with them at all. So that would be 3 points. That gives us the total of 9 through 15. I think it's an exciting season, guys. I'm really genuinely excited for this. I'm as in on the team as I've been in a while. I hope it's an exciting thing. I hope we sign a center back. I hope Kane stays. There's a lot of hopes going on. But at the end of the day, I think Ainge got us all where we want to be, which is we're playing a very front foot style of football that's going to be very exciting for the full season. I appreciate you guys taking some time today. I know it's been a while since I put one of these out. I think I'm going to do my best to try to get these out more, try to grow the channel some more. If you can, find me on Twitter or X now that it's called Midwest Hotspur, YouTube Midwest Hotspur. Give me a like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. It's greatly appreciated. And like I said, I'll work to get these out more regularly. If you have any thoughts on what should be future content for this channel, reach out to me. Shoot me a message in the comments. Message me on Twitter. Let me know what you guys want to hear, what you're curious of my thoughts might be. So let's go, guys. It's going to be an exciting season. I'm happy to get back to this, and as always, come on, you Spurs.